Well, folks, this is JC. I wrote a little article and I put it on Facebook from a situation I had a few days ago, and you know, it was about a very unpleasant thing that happened to me. You know, this really pissed me off, and I thought, you know, maybe this will do it. I'll just put it on Facebook, but I decided I'm going to go ahead and make a video of it. I'll put it on YouTube where everybody in the world who wants to can see it and see what happened. I'm not going to tell anything that's not true, but it was a pretty raw deal, I think, for me, and I wouldn't like to see it happen to someone else again. So anyhow, without further ado, now I'm going to go on and tell my story here. And so, okay. I said, well, so much for giving something back. Here's my sad story. Now, this was for giving something back. I remember how hard it was for me when my sweetie went to heaven, and I was there, and I would have given anything to have someone to talk to, but I didn't want anybody to talk to. It was really tough. And I thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice? You know, I know there are other people probably have the same problems, and it would be nice if I could help somebody out a little bit. So, okay, it says, well, so much for giving something back. Here's my sad story, and I'll read the rest of it the way I wrote it. I recently applied for a position with a peer-to-peer counseling group run by Stanislaus County, and I was accepted. I thought maybe I could help someone who was having problems and needed someone to talk to, a sounding board, so to speak. So I started these classes, and I put in upwards of 50 hours listening to some very ho-hum instructions by a woman whom I guess never liked me much from the beginning for whatever her reasons were. I took the regular course, and I passed the course and received a certificate showing that I had passed the course successfully, and a little name tag made for me specifically. It had my name on it. I can hang it around my neck when I went to my counseling. And I thought I was doing very well. I guess I was wrong. The two ladies who run this program are Julia Washington and Stacy Farquhar, F-A-R-Q-U-H-A-R, Farquhar. Julia has never been anything but very polite and courteous and friendly with me and up front, as near as I can tell, up front. One day I made a couple of flirtation-type comments to her jokingly. I apologized later for one, thinking I may have embarrassed her, but she took it very well and seemed satisfied enough with my apology and told me it was no problem. Hear the old clock of ringing there, noon or 11. Stacy was a little different situation. She's kind of a bland person and never really showed any friendship toward me at all. Not that that even matters, really. But there were some early signs that I should have recognized, and now I wish that I had. One day when she was trying to hook up a monitor to a VHS tape player for a presentation, I offered my assistance because it was obvious she didn't know how to do it. With no fanfare, she refused my help, and a short while later, she left the room and went and got some other fella to come in and fix it for her. It only needed RCA jacks to be inserted from the player to the screen, and the screen display set up in the right format. Later, during a conversation with all the students, Julia asked me if being refused my help by Stacy had offended me. I said, yes, it did somewhat, since I offered it in good faith, but I didn't make an issue of it, and it was never mentioned again. After we finished our course, we were asked to attend a regular Thursday night meetings twice a month. I attended those meetings, and it became obvious immediately that as far as Stacy was concerned, I wasn't there. This is a mystery, because she never acknowledged my presence, she never spoke to me, she never even mentioned my name. It was obvious to some others, too, because I mentioned this slight to one of the ladies one time, and she admitted that she had noticed it. After the second time of being ignored, I asked Stacy directly if she thought she might have a problem matching me up with a client. She said no, she didn't think she would have a problem. She didn't expound on that, but after the class was over and the people were beginning to leave, Julia came over to me and said they were waiting for my security clearance to find a client for me. I thought that strange because all the other students had already had their security clearances and had been assigned clients. Now to the present. This was last Thursday. This last time I was there, I have to admit I was becoming a bit agitated. After being completely ignored again by Stacy, I asked her specifically if she intended to match me with a client. I told her if she didn't intend to please stop wasting my time. After that, everyone had a little chat session, After that, everyone had a little chat session to tell about our last 2 weeks' events. Actually, Julia asked us, what has happened since we saw you last. Anything interesting that happened to us. Some told interesting stories. Some of the others told very sad stories about things that happened to them, things that were bothering them. Most of the new students, when they spoke of their past and problems they had had in the beginning, they were very sad, and many of them even cried. When asked in the beginning by Julia why I would like to have this position as a counselor, I explained that after my wife, Donna Lee, went to heaven, I realized how hard this was for me to accept. And I'd come to realize that there were probably other people going through the same situations who might be able to be helped by someone who understood their feelings and their problem with it. But I didn't cry. Maybe I should have. On this last meeting, during the meeting, each of us was asked to speak of some experience we had had since we were there the last time. One lady spoke of not having spoken to her daughter in 10 years because her daughter didn't want any more to do with her, and having grandchildren that she had never seen and probably never would, and she shed tears for this, which was very understandable. A couple of other people told of situations that happened to them during the last couple of weeks. When he came to me, I described a situation I had experienced in my mobile home park. Some folks in the park and I had decided to form a committee to help with some problems which had become a source of annoyance for a lot of the tenants there. The officials of the committee were chosen, and I volunteered to be vice president. It became obvious right away that this may become more of just a complaining committee than one that actually intended to do anything seriously. The 5 people on the committee agreed to meet the coming week to discuss things and become acquainted with each other and address our duties. When we met, there were 4 additional people there. I made the point that when the committee meets, it should probably be only the members of the committee and not other people also. Some disagreed with me, and I gave an example of a problem that was prevalent in the park. The problem was that cats were being allowed by their owners to run wild in the park instead of being on a leash like they're supposed to be. And so they were messing up other people's yards, and it was annoying. I said, as an example, I made up a hypothetical situation and also a hypothetical solution. I said, if we in the committee are meeting and discussing the cats, and I say we should get traps and trap the stray cats and throw them in the river, and if we decide this is a good solution, it'll be very awkward if the person who owns the cats is sitting there listening to us. I could see right away this was going to be a personal thing with some of the people, instead of a committee that actually would accomplish something for the good of the park. So later that evening, I called the president and the other members and told them that I decided to resign as vice president. They were not happy, but they accepted my resignation and my reason for doing it. At that point, Stacy said, "Good for you, Jim." I think this is the first time she spoke to me in 2 months. Well, guess what? The next day, the supervisor of the entire program called me and told me that I had been discussed extensively after I left about my idea of how to eliminate cats, and they were appalled and didn't think I should be on the program. I explained to the supervisor this was a hypothetical situation to make a point, that I didn't actually intend to throw cats in the river, and she said she couldn't help that because Stacy was the one who was head of that program, and she didn't want me in it, so she, the big boss, had to tell me not to come back, and that's what she did. I thought it was pretty petty that she would call me on the phone the next day and not at least have the courtesy in the class to approach me and say, "Jim, we have a problem we need to discuss." I guess this sounds like sour grapes, but it's pretty discouraging after putting in all this time and thinking I had done a good job, even receiving my certificate as a peer-to-peer counselor. I was told I was being dumped for something I said in a hypothetical situation, something I'm sure nobody there thought I would actually do in real life, that I only said this as an example. I don't normally say bad things about people, and I'm certainly not going to start now, but I do know the truth when I see it. I think this is Stacy's doing because for whatever her reason is, and I really don't know what it is, she doesn't like me, and she never has liked me. Well, this is from a lady who is supposed to be teaching all of us how to mentor other people in their time of trouble and problems. This is a lady who actually has to slip out of the class from time to time to have a smoke. I know she has children, and you would think in her position as a mentor, she would probably do better than place her children in the situation of having to grow up in a smoke-filled environment. I have to say I never saw her smoke, but I heard her say she couldn't quit, and I know she left the class occasionally, and I could smell cigarette smoke odor on her. And about her qualifications for mentoring persons herself, I'm not too sure about that. I can only go by what I hear her say. Like yesterday, she told of an especially awkward situation with a man whom she was mentoring, whom she said had started to use very foul language in her presence. And in her exact words are, "So I threw in a few F-bombs myself." Well, maybe using foul language like the F word with a client who uses foul language is good for business, makes them feel better, and is an adequate and proper approach to peer-to-peer mentoring. I don't know, but I don't think so. But what do I know? I just got dumped. I think she did me a favor in one respect, in that I won't have to try to work with her. I think she's a very hypocritical, immature lady. Woman, rather. Without even enough class to face her own problem and come to me like an adult and say we have a problem that we need to discuss. Instead, in a cowardly act, she misrepresents my statement and takes it out of context and asks her boss to do her dirty work. I'm sorry, but I can't even recommend these people for anyone who needs the peer-to-peer mentoring. I told her boss when she called I meant to put this on Facebook, so it won't be a surprise to any of them, and I haven't said anything that's not true that I can't prove. It's really aggravating to put in all this time and effort and have someone misrepresent me and have me dumped for no good reason at all, except she just doesn't like me, and I still don't know why that is. I really don't. Frankly, although I'm not a spiteful or begrudging person, I can't stop from considering maybe filing a formal complaint about this and asking to go before a review board. I don't think Stacy is a good person. I don't think she should be allowed to get away with misrepresenting me and having me dumped for no good reason. If we don't like someone, we say, "I'm sorry, I don't like you, and I don't think we can work together, so let's discuss it." I don't know how much Julia Washington had to do with all of this. I hope nothing, because she's always been only polite and courteous to me. Even after the first time I made an exception to the fact that I was the only one of the students so far who hadn't received a client, she stopped me after the course of that day and explained to me that they were waiting for my security clearance to come through. Frankly, that's the last I ever heard of a client until the evening before all this happened on Thursday. Stacy called me and said she may have a client for me. And then when I went into the meeting, she never mentioned it at all. I had to ask her twice to get a straight answer from her as to who made the call. Then she told me she had made the call. So, folks, I don't know what's going on. I only know I spent a lot of my time seriously and sincerely trying to be educated enough to do some good for someone in a peer-to-peer mentoring capacity. And I was dumped like a dog turd without so much as a "by your leave" by a woman that absolutely has no class and maturity about her. A woman who's too cowardly to do her own dirty work, and frankly, I'm a bit disappointed with her boss for not telling her to do it herself. Well, I spelt my guts about this now, but I tell you, I wouldn't recommend these people for anybody as a mentor or a peer-to-peer counselor, but you can use your own judgment if it ever comes down to it for you. Anyhow, this is JC. I'll see you down the road if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.